Okay, hopefully no one's gotten tired of thrust testing yet. So far be it from me to let any good bit of recycling go to waste. I have this very thick cardboard box that I have to put out, and before we do that, I wanted to run some swords through it. So this is going to be an all bastard sword or longsword special. I have 6 different swords that all have different tips on them, and we've done some of these through pumpkins previously, but those tests have shown that different mediums result in slightly different types of thrust, of which sword will perform better. And thick cardboard is obviously different than the hard self foam that I've been testing previously, and I expected would be different than pumpkins. So what I'm going to do this time is, rather than just do one-handed thrust, I'm going to do half swording, and I'm going to take a step and thrust through the target. So it's going to be a rather harder thrust. It's not going to be very fast, but it's going to be very forceful compared to before. And then we'll measure to see how deep each of them go through. This should stand up pretty well, so it'll move around a little bit, but otherwise I think that we'll be able to get a pretty good shot out of each of them. So we'll start off with the earlier period longswords first, so the ones that have the thinner but wider and more spatulate tips, and then we'll move our way on to these types of the more pointy, or rather the narrower and pointy but thicker, more reinforced ones that were used for armored combat. Let's see which ones do the best against thick cardboard. Starting with the widest of all the tips, we have the Hanwei Tinker Pearce Great Sword of War, an Oakshot Type 13A blade. And when possible, rather than strike through the direction of the grain of the cardboard, I'm going to try and strike against it, so offering more resistance. If anything, for whatever reason, slides all the way up to my hand, that'll just be a maximum score. So one step, we're just going to kind of lean into the strike. Okay. Eight centimeters for the first strike. And 23 centimeters for the second strike. So apparently I hit it quite a bit harder the second time. Next up, the Albion Baron, the Oakshot Type 12A. (16 centimeters on the first try. And 18 centimeters on the second try. The new Windlass type, this is described as a type 16A, although I have my questions about how traditional a type 16A this is. This is the Windlass 14th century hand and half sword, one of the Alexandria type. It's worth noting that this doesn't have an edge on it. It is quite sharp on the tip, though. (19.5 on the first thrust. And 19.5 on the second thrust. For once, we have a very consistent sword. Next, the Balaur Arms 15th century Italian longsword, which is an oakshot type 18B, probably. $15 on the first attempt. And 20 on the second attempt. The Eric Östland type 18C, like the Alexandria Arsenal style wide cutting blades. Now, it's worth mentioning that this, similar to the Great Swords of War, is not a longsword that you would usually do half swording with, but I have gloves on and I will attempt it just for consistency's sake. Oh my. I hope I didn't come out the other end. Whoo, mammy. That's 27 centimeters on the first attempt. And 25 centimeters on the second attempt. So, you know, Eric, obviously, this is a much more expensive blade than the other ones that we've been testing, but this is also a Oakshot Group 2 blade, so this is meant to be a blade from the group that's intended to be stabby, stabby, thrusting, thrusting, yet it still remains, it still has a lot of cutting potential. So it's very interesting that usually these type are thought of as being heavy, powerful cleaving swords, but it shouldn't be discounted how well they can thrust, especially when compared to the earlier period swords, of which can still cut quite well. So something interesting. This is a very much all-purpose design of sword, and yeah, if you guys ever have the chance to get a hold of a sword of this type, I highly recommend you do so. Albion Castellen, type 15, type 15A. So again, with the very pokey tip and reinforced at the end. Yeah. Whew. 25 centimeters on the first. And 20 centimeters on the second. Okay, so what did we learn? Unsurprisingly, the very reinforced tip of the Type 15A did very well. That is not to be surprised. The broad cutting blades, for the most part, did not perform well, although there was one kind of rogue entry from the Hanwei Tinker Pearce Great Sword of War. It's worth noting this is a very, very stiff blade. I can't flex it hardly at all. It's possible that the extra stiffness for this particular test helped it score a little bit above and beyond and punch above its weight class, compensated for the fact that its tip wasn't really conducive to thrusting compared to others. The Eric Castellen, so this is again a much more expensive sword than the others. Usually I would say that after a certain point in quality of sword, you don't really get more bang for your buck. In this case, maybe that's not true. Eric Castellen is a very competent smith. We're going to be looking at his work in greater detail in the coming weeks as we go over each of the swords individually. It's very clear that he knows how to produce a sword. It's true that this is the only one of its type that I've been testing so far, but it's also very clear that this is a very high quality reproduction, and it shows in every test that I put it through. It's come out very, very well. So really neat to see that this type of sword, again, not only performs very well in how it handles and how it performs in the cut, but now also is excelling in the thrust. So if you want an all-purpose sword, something that can accommodate one or two hands, has broad cleaving power, and the ability to thrust and be used either in or out of armor, this might be the sword for you. Hope everyone enjoyed, and we'll see you again very soon. Next time. Take care.